Welcome to the channel, Jonathan Rocket the First here. Let's talk about this purple onion tone, shall we? This album is so next level. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. And this song in particular is one of the first tracks on the album. When you start hearing the bass effect, it intrigued me, and it's only until recently, in the last few years, that I've gotten really deep into music production that I was able to figure out what it is. And so I'm pretty grateful to be able to share this today with anybody who is interested, because it really is a lot of fun when you get it set up. Let's dive into it. I'm turning off all of my makeup right now. Actually, let's turn it back on. What am I doing? Let's listen to it. Here's the DI. Here's the tone. All right. So, this is all my makeup. The effect is embedded inside this Helix right here. We'll get to that in a second. And all of these I'm turning off now are my pre-processing, or my DI. Let's start by listening to the DI. And I'll turn on a compressor here because I am hearing inconsistency that I will try to show you right here. Okay. Put in some headphones. That's the easiest way to hear it, but you can hear it on good systems or anything. It's, you know what I mean? Once you know what you're listening for, it's a little bit easier to comprehend what this compressor's doing, or the effect that you're actually gaining from it. It's really cool. So I have a I have a distressor on this time. I would use a FET compressor like an 1176 or something with fast attack and release. I love the distressor, so I use either a distressor or an 1176 for this. 4-to-1 ratio, so it's not too brick wally, and then a high pass filter, so the sub range of the bass isn't causing undesirable like undulations in this. Like the sub can get in the way, eat up the headroom of the signal, and start causing this compressor to act in a way that you don't want it to. You want it to be locked in with the note of the guitar and the transient, more the mids and the highs of the signal. So with this compressor right here, let's listen to it off. All right, so breaking this down, you hear the that second note. That's loud in the low mids. It's up front. Now, what I want is for even my low level pops and slaps to be kind of punchy, where it's up front and in your face, and it has that punch characteristic. So what this compressor is doing is, if you listen, those last two muted slaps right there, those two are pretty. I don't hit the strings very hard, so it is a low level dynamic hit right there. So right now, so you can see too, just with these four notes, a high dynamic and a low dynamic. Essentially, the best way I can explain of how to hear compressing is listen for the low level dynamic hits, and then compare them to the high level dynamic hits that I just showed you, where it's clearly poking out this second note. The low end of that note kind of comes at you. The rest of the notes are kind of seated back. So when I turn on this compressor, listen to those low level notes, and then listen to the punch of it, like its actual dynamic movement when I turn on this, because I have it set to where the high level and the low levels are going to be consistent now. So here's the signal off, on. It's giving a consistency to the to the slaps and the pops and adding punch in a really cool way. So that's what that's doing. Next, I'm going to turn on this and brighten my strings up. In my last video, I showed this in a little bit more detail. I forgot to add, though, is that I'm using flat wound strings currently, and I use this to brighten up the strings overall to make them sound more like bright and clanky strings. You can do this same move with dead strings to make them brighter. I'm not saying you got to rely on it. I know a lot of people that will, but still change your strings, I'd say. But when you're in a bind, you can use this and it'll brighten up anything. Here's it off. So give me some brightness. It's cool. Nice. And then, yeah, that's that. Cheat code. And then we're going to turn on the effect itself. So when I turn this on, what the heck is this doing? This is the $1,000,000 question. So this is an auto filter. What does that mean? You have control of a filter with your dynamic control. With your playing, you have control of a low pass filter, it says, in the direction of up. What the heck is that? Let's check it out. I'm going to open up a standard parametric EQ and I'll show you. This is a low pass filter right here. And this auto filter is at a resting state down here. And when you start playing, it'll pop this low pass filter up and then back down. So it's an auto filter in this manner. The resonant frequency of this curve right here, that resonance going up and down is what's creating that wakka wakka effect, because it's more like this of a filter. I'll show you in the details, is that this filter is more like this. It's poking up a frequency as it's going by. So it is boosting and then drastically cutting after, and that's creating a weird effect. And then this is what you're controlling when you play. You hit a pop, it's going to go bap, 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 and that's what it does. You have control of the actual timing of this, up and down. You have control of the frequencies that it rests at. Like, say you mute, it's eventually going to fall to rest. And then you have control of the maximum that this high pass goes. I think I have it at about 5K. So when I go from about, like, say 1K to 5K right there, that's the extent of this filter. It's doing this, and you have control of it with how hard or how soft you play. So let's get rid of this. Go back to the effect, and I'll show you these parameters. So low pass, with this filter, you have the ability to do high pass and band pass as well. This filter gain and the filter Q, I like having a higher Q because that is the resonance I was talking about, or the boost in the filter before the cut. So this Q would actually give you a good resonance. That's pretty crucial to the tone. So let's listen here. Absolutely need that resonance. So your decay, I like to have normally around 50 seconds or whatever. This creates a little bit of a delay as the filter is going up. And this creates, here, let me show you like a 1 second attack. This is a really cool sound right here. Let's get away from this repeat. I do that all the time, dude. Just listen to 4 notes for the rest of my life. Let's go back to the beginning. Really cool effect, but that's a 1.2 second attack, which means it's taking about a second to get up to that. And you can hear it go, wah, wah. You're hearing the slow attack. So I have it at about 50 milliseconds and then 250 milliseconds. That way it recovers in between slaps and pops. That's basically a good, I mean, it don't have to be this entirely. You can play around with it. If you have a slow decay, it's not going to recover in time, and you probably only get the first slap pop out of a phrase that'll actually have the effect, and then when you stop playing, it gives it time. So you definitely don't want that. A very fast decay shows that it just stays around the low end, and then your low end controls it like a fart. So that's hilarious. So you want to get between fart and nothing at all, which is about 200 milliseconds in my book. Moving on. The frequency right here at 120 hertz means that it is resting at 120 hertz when it does rest. The frequency depth right here is up to 4.9K, which means when my slaps or pops hit this up, it's not going any higher than 4.9K, so it'll max out about here and come back down. That's good because that's where your upper mids is, and you don't really need to affect anything higher than that. You want this to be wrapped around the note of the guitar, which is around the 200 to 4K range on a bass guitar. I'm just running through all of these. Make sure this is in the direction of up because you can have it in the direction of down, and that means you're controlling a low pass that is resting high, and then the second you hit it, it goes low. So if you adjust it, I'm sure it'll sound cool, but this ain't the purple onion tone, let me tell you. Let's go back. This is the very you can literally just copy and paste my settings. Everything, all of this, to get the same sound, more or less. I have 80% mix instead of 100. I like to have a main blend of it, but still some of that dry tone in there. The main thing you need to adjust, or what I adjust when I'm setting up this tone, is your sensitivity right here. You want to adjust it with your actual dynamics of your playing. So slap or pop as hard as you can. Set your frequency with your highest slaps and pops because you want those to wrap around. And then if you were to go a little bit quieter, then the effect is going to pull out just a little bit of low end, and that's where you're really riding the line, like you're on the surfboard of this effect, is when you have this sensitivity set correctly. Think Cosmic Highway with at the end of Purple Onion. That Cosmic Highway, he's not slapping and popping. He's actually got his sensitivity adjusted for his finger playing. And he's messing with that the entire song in Cosmic Highway. He's messing with the low pass and its ability to, if he were to just play some really quiet notes, now all of a sudden it's taking out all his high end in a really cool way. Listen to that track. You'll hear what I'm saying. So let's listen to it and adjust the sensitivity. If you love this album and you love this tone, you'll know exactly when it starts to sound good. Follow your ears. That's what they always say. I hate when people say that, and then I start my YouTube channel, and like this is the first thing I say in my videos. Just follow your ears. God. Moving on. 0% sensitivity or zero sensitivity means it doesn't matter how loud I'm getting. I'm not pushing that low pass filter up. 10 means that even my low level hits are causing that low pass filter to stay up so that it's not doing it. So find the threshold in between the two. And like I said, follow your ears. That sounds good to me. Now right here, I have my stage like in my last video where I'm pulling out resonances of the string itself. So this is a Swiss Army knife of a EQ plugin. This has got multi-band, like dynamic EQ points where it's like a multi-band compressor with just a band. And I'm finding those weird resonances, and instead of like cutting them, which I didn't want to do this round, I'm just taming the transient of them. So these are really fast attack and releases, and if it gets too crazy, then it's going to tame those wild transients that are actually, when that resonant low-pass filter, that auto filter goes up in this area, that boost, that Q boost, is causing these to be wild. So when I had this on, I wanted to clear some low mids. There's some mid frequencies here that are somewhat particular to my bass. They kind of shift as time goes on or whatever, but for the most part, they're always there. And so that's what all of this is. And then these are my one-time uses in this for taming this in a way where I'm not actually cutting that high end. I'm just taming the transient of it. So off. That's what I'm talking about. It's subtle, but it's more stark as you start applying the makeup. So I don't know when in the chain that I actually would start applying those dynamic EQ bands, but I definitely know that it probably wasn't right off rip. I wasn't hearing it until I actually had more saturation on, which is what I'm about to do now. Let's listen to the source right now and see where it's at. Johnny come lately, all through the county. Cool. Let's hit the enhancement. It needs a little bit more juice. I'll turn this on. I hear in the original low end. I don't know about you guys. Let's just listen to the isolated low end. So that low end is distorted. Like I was saying in my last video, you can hear that distortion as a fart. And it's kind of doing that. So what I did with this Saturn is I took tape machine distortion and anything in between 83 hertz, which is a good bit of sub or low end of mine, and 1.2 kilohertz. I'm using a tape machine and driving that to create a bit of that cool effect. Let's listen. With the right channel soloed. No fart? Yes, fart. That sounds weird soloed, but whatever. I had it about 78%. Let's listen to it now. That's cool. I don't need too much distortion here. I'm not trying to alter the filtered tone too much. So this is another thing where I would turn on this Saturn, distort a little bit, and then I would go to this EQ and adjust it. This is just filtering after. And then general tone shaping. Taming a little bit of low mids, taming this high stuff a little bit and focusing it in a different area. And then adding a little bit of sub content. If you see my Frizzle Fry video, I had it up at about 10 or 11 decibels. But right here, I'm like, man, I don't need to boost it this way. So I'm thinking, what's a cool way to get some sub without just the typical boost of the EQ, because that's so 2005. Let's load up Infinity Bass. Cue Infinity Bass. Let's turn this on. This thing just adds sub content in a cool way. So the frequency range is at 100, around 100. I'm just going to go 101 to keep in line with the 11. 11's my favorite number, so let's just do 11% of it. Let's listen to how this is on and off. You definitely have to hear this move with good headphones or a system. But it's adding a lot of sub in a cool way. Now it's 100, so it's in the punch region of the bass, and I'm slap popping. So it's adding sub content of a punchy source. So that actual sub content is not going to delay. I actually have the character at -10 too to choke up the actual decay of it. So I want that sub to be punchy. That's what's crazy about this right here is I do this with kick drums and stuff too. I hope that I can lay this out in future videos with how I use this with drums. But you can create pure sub content and have this plugin listening to the punch characteristic of, say, a kick drum. So it's just going to be bump. And when you have just a 40 hertz or 50 hertz, boom, with no decay, it's very tight. It's metal. I'm telling you, it's metal that can be used to full effect. So I just wanted to add it on the bass and see how it sounded, and it sounded pretty sweet. Can you hear anything? These headphones are kind of good, so I can kind of hear it. That's that. My thought process behind that, too, just like I love my sub box here when I'm playing, and I love feeling that in cool ways, and so I was just like experimenting with the coolest way of getting the most low end. Like I had described, this isn't a low end tone. I needed to compensate and add a bunch of sub after the effect, so that low end wasn't affecting wasn't adversely affecting that envelope filter. And then I'm just stacking sub after the signal inside of my makeup. So now that I have that bass, infinity bass on, I'm going to open my C4, same use as the last video. I'm putting a safety net on with multi-band compression. I'm putting a safety net on these 4 frequency ranges. I set the crossover points in areas where, like, this is the low mids. This is where that Saturn is distorting the low end in the way that I want that to be kind of prominent. The infinity bass, all that sub's going to be here, and then all this other stuff I can control. So this is general tone shaping, and it looks like I boosted the lows and the low mid band about 2 decibels more than the high mids and the high band. So there's your tone shaping behavior right there. I'm using this a bit more heavy-handed than a typical tone, and it's because the effect is on it. I like compressing this effect a little bit more so you can hear the artifacts of the low-level artifacts a bit more, which is the farts. And I like that all to be up front, so I have to compress it just a little bit more. And my favorite way to compress a whole signal to make it evenly balanced and up front is with this. I dial it in here, slower attack and release times for the bass, or for the bass frequencies, faster attack and release times for the high frequencies. That's the way it's clamping down in a good way, depending on your frequency range. This doesn't neuter the high end too much with the slower attack and release times. And yeah, I'm just touching each one. So yeah, now following back a line, this dotted line is my 0 line. So if I get it close to that dotted line, then I can A-B it and see what it's actually doing to the signal with the compression and with the tone shaping. So here it is before. Sweet. And my last bit of processing is this flatline clipper. Yeah, and I'm kind of just using it as volume, like gain staging as well, and bringing it up. It is just barely touching this clipper when I'm hitting at my loudest peaks. This is just setting a brick wall with the volume so I can bring it up, and so it's just not going to reach, so it doesn't so none of these slaps or pops poke out of the mix. I'm not really using it that much because I feel like the C4 controlled it in a good way. This distortion that I've done has sort of tamed it in a way, and this effect in general is controlling the dynamics in a cool way. I've got my other my DI processing that's compressing and controlling this, so I'm really just using this as if it does get out of control, and I'm seeing that it's not really. Yeah, it's hitting it by like 0.2 or 0.3. That's kind of what I want it. I don't want it hitting it very hard with these transients because the transients are more rounded as a result of the effect. So if I start to clip that, it might be adding a transient is the best way to look at it. It might be adding transients that I don't want. Let's see if I can cause that to happen. Oh yeah, it just happened immediately. You can hear like a crispiness in this that's it's messing up the rounded off nature of this effect. And nobody wants that. So let's listen to this and balance it in with the rest of the tracks. I like it. So there you go, Purple Onion Tone. The content is on YouTube now. I can't find it anywhere. It's very hard to find content like this. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you're looking for how to make this tone, I hope you found this video. And I hope I didn't confuse you and cause you to put down your bass.